Welcome back, grade 12s. In this video, we will learn how to draw a scatter plot to represent bivariate data. The question reads as follows. A medical researcher recorded the growth in the number of bacteria over a period of 10 hours. The results are recorded in the following table. First question asks us to draw a scatter plot to represent the data. From that scatter plot, we would then need to state the type of relationship that exists between the number of hours and the growth in the number of bacteria. We will then need to identify whether there are any outliers. So for this question, they haven't explicitly told us which one is your X and which one is your Y. The convention is whichever variable they give you first, let that be your X value. But you can also deduce it by trying to decide which one would be dependent and which one is independent. So time here passes whether bacteria grows or not. Okay, so that would be your independent variable, and we will call that X. The number of bacteria would then be your dependent variable, Y. So we are going to now plot our scatter plot. Remember that you need to label your x-axis, label your y-axis, and give the scatter plot a title. Let us now plot the points. So the first point we're dealing with is 0 and 5. The second point is 1 and 10. Third point, 2 and 75, 3 and 13, 4 and 10, 5 and 20, 6 and 30, 7 and 35, 8 and 45, 9 and 65, 10 and 80, and the very last point, 11 and 1. We now need to determine the type of relationship that exists between the number of hours and the growth in the number of bacteria. We can do this by observing the path along which these points lie or follow. I have traced out a line that best fits the data. So it is not a linear or a straight line graph. It could be a quadratic, but this quadratic would have a restriction, and that restriction would be x is strictly greater than or equal to 0. That would be the restriction for the quadratic. It could also be considered an exponential function. Now, are there any outliers? Yes, I see an outlier here and an outlier there. These two outliers were identified merely by observation. So our answers would be the first outlier occurs at 2 hours and the second outlier occurs at 11 hours. There are several reasons that could explain the causes of these outliers. It is up to you, the student, to decide what that could possibly be and inform your examiner. So one example could be, or one explanation rather, could be that this may merely have just been to researcher error.